Hi and welcome to Four Wheels Good. Tonight we have the best from the National Classic Car Show at the NEC in Birmingham, while Nicky Fox is invited to a Model A Ford Club in San Fernando, California. Other cars featured include the new Fiat Marea and the Suzuki X90. But whatever you drive, the main thing that takes away the pleasure of four-wheeled motoring is the fear of crime. How secure is your car, for instance, right now? Well, this year, What Car magazine conducted their biggest ever security test covering 70 vehicles which met Home Office guidelines on car security. The guidelines state that vehicles should be able to withstand entry attack from a professional thief for at least 2 minutes and then be prevented from driving off for a further 3 minutes. The results were shocking. Only 2 cars in 70 passed the test. Some cars are broken into and driven away in seconds, as Peter Baker reports.
Theft from cars and theft of cars are the UK's most common crimes. The good news is that while the latest generation of electronic immobilisers are at last offering improved protection, the figures show that many cars are getting easier to break into in the first place.
This was our biggest security test yet, and we tested 70 1996 model year cars. We found that we were able to break into all but 2 of them and drive away all but 30 of them. So although the immobilisers did well, the locks did less well. We'd like to point to the 2 stars of the show, which are in fact 2 British built cars. One was the Ford Fiesta and one was a Range Rover. They were the only 2 that we couldn't break into. The Fiesta was particularly impressive when you consider how much it costs. The Range Rover is a £40,000 vehicle. You'd expect it to have good security, but the Fiesta as an option is probably about £11,000 all told, which we think is impressive.
Well, the results are extremely worrying, but aren't they even more worrying considering that you weren't allowed to break glass, to bend metal? In the real world that happens, so in effect the results could be even worse.
Indeed, and we believe it will come to the stage eventually where we will have to damage test the vehicles, as we call it. At the moment, the government security guidelines say that you can damage test, but we know we can do it without damaging them. So, as you say, in fact, the situation could be worse.
If break-ins are difficult to protect against, at least an immobiliser will protect our cars from being driven away. But what type do we look for?
Here's a very typical one that's a bad one, made of plastic. You can actually turn it off. It comes out into sockets with all different coloured wiring. A very bad electronic immobiliser. Here we have a good one, all metal case that's got rivets holding the thing together, coming out in a bundle of black wires. No way of knowing where these actual black wires are going and which are the immobilisation circuits. These 2 outline very clearly the difference between good and bad immobilisers, and I think this is what you pay for when you have an installation that needs to be professionally fitted.
It's all very well saying that having your car broken into isn't as bad as having it stolen, but a lot of people feel that it is. You know, you have there's glass everywhere perhaps, or things are being taken from the car, from your glove box. You've had your personal space invaded. So we believe that although fewer cars, if you like, are likely to be stolen, we think manufacturers should spend more time on locks, particularly deadlocks, which are a very effective way of stopping the opportunist thief from actually getting into your car in the first place.
Very simple things. Filler caps, for instance, on this particular vehicle, the new Fiesta, it has got a lockable filler cap, but if you were to make a key to that filler cap, it wouldn't open the doors, let alone start the ignition up. But there's still a lot of vehicles around where that can happen. It's quite a favourite of the thieves. If you buy a car with alloy wheels, now the wheels and the tyres are very expensive. It's just locking wheel nuts. It's a very simple and effective device. And making sure that the spare wheels are internally fitted and not just slung underneath on a little piece of metal underneath the car. Very easy to steal. Bonnet protection and boot protection, again, very important. It's okay just getting the doors sorted out, but if you can still enter the vehicle from the boot or the tailgate, or get into the engine compartment and steal actual engine components. It's very important. It's what the public wants, and if that's what the public wants, then they should have it, no matter what the cost is. And deadlocks, immobilisers, good quality immobilisers, alarms, all these things, they need to be put onto vehicles, and the public are willing to pay.
We've been auto locksmiths for 20 years, and we know that the security of vehicles over that 20-year span has not improved considerably over that period. Some have taken it seriously, some have actually worked hard on securing vehicles, others have just trod water. And why they've paid the engineers for the money to do the security within their companies, I can never understand, because it just hasn't happened.
So tell me about the actual tests themselves. What sort of criteria were you working to?
Well, the Home Office 2 years ago brought out a draft specification regarding testing of new vehicles. And we worked along with the Home Office to the final procedures, and within the guidelines of the Home Office test procedure, that's what we worked to.
One would think that a more expensive car would have better security than a cheaper car, but this is not always the case.
Well, the winner of the 1996 test was the Ford Fiesta, or the humble Ford Fiesta, as people might say. It's a very, very good all-round security package. We've got a transponder-based immobiliser, which is a little computer chip set into the key, which communicates with the car itself. And if they're not matched, the car won't start. It's a high security key, so it's very difficult to pick or jiggle this particular lock. The locks themselves are well shielded. There's a deadlocks package on most of the models. I mean, if you are buying a Fiesta, make sure yours has got the deadlock package. Again, as I was saying, they thought about the petrol cap problems. They thought about locking wheel nuts, spare wheels inside the vehicle. Generally, all round, Ford have done a very good job on this car. And if we move over to the door, the door mechanism itself is controlled by cable link. Now, this is quite an important thing. Traditionally, cars are done with a rigid rod, which is very easy to get hold of. The lock shielding inside the door here is metal and not a cheap bit of plastic like most manufacturers tend to use.
Small hatches. We tested quite a few small hatches, some of which were the big hits with thieves, such as the BMW's compact VW Golf, Ford Escort, which actually is one of the biggest targets for thieves in the country. Generally speaking, the performance was fairly disappointing, particularly on door locks. A lot of door locks were overcome very quickly. The Fiat Bravo, for example, 6 seconds, which is pretty poor. Again, it's another Ford that probably comes out best in this category. The immobiliser was effective, but disappointingly the deadlocks were overcome, although it did take us some time to get around them. Family cars. These are the big players in the market. You've got things like the Ford Mondeo, the Vauxhall Vectra, the Rover 600, the Renault Laguna. Generally speaking, the standard here was fairly good. I think the manufacturers are taking more notice of the fact that security is quite high on people's minds when they choose this sort of car. The immobilisers weren't too bad. All cars had immobilisers, and probably the majority were effective. The locks, unfortunately, continued to disappoint. Although there were some deadlocks, which is encouraging, many of them weren't very good quality or weren't particularly well shielded, which made them vulnerable. Also, unique fit radios, i.e. the ones that cannot be transferred to another car when you pull them out. We'd like to see more of those. Overall, we think the Vauxhall Vectra is probably the best bet here. It has deadlocks which were overcome by our experts, but they did keep them busy for a bit, which could be what makes all the difference out there on the street. And the immobiliser did stop us full stop. Compact executives and executives. Now, this was a very interesting category for two reasons. One is obviously these are cars that are very popular with thieves. They're the ones that they're easy to sell on. But also we wanted to see how BMW would do. Well, they won our security award last year, and we had high hopes that they would have developed their systems to probably walk away with some plaudits this year. Surprisingly, although they actually won this class, it wasn't quite as good as we expected. Basically, the 3 Series locks we found were the same as they were last year. All well and good, you might think. But unfortunately, because the thieves' expertise on the street has developed a lot within those 12 months, we were able to overcome them, reflecting their methods in less than a minute. So we were rather disappointed there. Other cars in this category include things like the Audi A4, the Ford Scorpio, the BMW 5 Series. Again, we were disappointed with the locks. The Audi A4, black sheep of the family, I'm afraid, only 5 seconds to get in. BMW probably comes out best, as I've mentioned, in this category. Their deadlocks remain the best on offer, and the immobilisers are secure, so well done BMW, but could be better. Luxury cars. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're expecting luxury cars, most expensive cars, most difficult to steal. Well, in fact, I'm afraid it's not the case. In fact, luxury cars can be a lot easier to break into than cars that cost a third, a quarter of the price. The Jaguar XJ6, unfortunately, is an example of this. It has what would, on the face of it, be a decent locking system with deadlocks, but we managed to pop it in just 3 seconds, which is a bit of an indictment. Again, immobilisers proved fairly good in this category, although the Lexus was caught out. We managed to beat that in 3 minutes 41 seconds. That's quite a long time, so to give them their due, that probably would stop most thieves from having a go in the first place. Again, BMW get the plaudits here. They have a very good immobiliser, which is extremely difficult to beat. It beat us within we failed to beat it within the 5 minutes. And their locks are good, although we think they could be improved. They're not up to the standards of the BMW M3, for example, which on the face of it should be the same system. Sports cars. Again, sports cars, very popular with the thief. They need to be better protected, and on the whole they are, but because they are so popular with the thieves, we were even more rigorous in our standards here. Generally speaking, there's some good immobilisers out there, again some that failed, but when you're talking about cars like the Vauxhall Calibra, the MGF, Rover MGF, the BMW M3, very desirable cars, we'd like to see a bit more work done here. The Calibra probably takes it in this category simply because the door locks were more effective than the others. They weren't perfect, but they did stop us, and it did have an effective immobiliser. Similarly, the Vauxhall Tigra, it's a down-market version of the Calibra, we were impressed with that. But we still think that some of these cars costing up to £35,000, we would expect a bit more work to be done, particularly the ragtops, which are too easy to slit with a knife, so once you're in you don't want them to be easy to drive away too. 4x4s. Again, this is one of the few categories that actually has one of our winners in it. It's the Range Rover, which is an expensive car, but all credit to Range Rover. They've created a security system which is effective. Both the locks and the immobiliser kept us busy, and we couldn't drive it away within 5 minutes, and we couldn't break into it within 2 minutes. So well done, Range Rover. Other players in this market, not quite so good. We're talking about cars like the Land Rover Discovery, the Toyota RAV4 and the Vauxhall Frontera. Generally speaking, there was a bit of a mixed result here in terms of immobiliser and door locks. A lot of these cars come with locks that frankly date back up to 10 years, and they're not good enough. We'd like to see more security around the perimeter of the car. They look rugged, they look tough, but in fact they're a lot easier to steal than cars that look a lot more weedy on the road.
So with all these results in mind, what do we look for when buying a car?
I would say at a must, deadlocks, and at least an electronic immobiliser to stop the vehicle being driven away. And make sure that that electronic immobiliser has passed satisfactory criteria, somebody like Thatcham or Sold Secure. If it's past any of those, you know you've probably got something that's pretty good. There are businessmen that carry laptops in their boot and all their business papers. There are CD buffs and woofers and bangers are fitted throughout these vehicles. Thousands of pounds worth. They want the security there. The manufacturers do not offer that security, insomuch that I challenge any insurance company to insure the contents of a vehicle. Not one of them will insure the contents of a vehicle as they stand, so they know what's coming from the factory, they know that it's no good, they know it's rubbish.
Well, such is the importance of car security these days. We will be returning to the subject in future weeks. This is 4 Wheels Good on the Men and Motors channel. And after the break, a treat for classic car enthusiasts. Classic car enthusiasts have been descending on the Midlands once again for this year's National Classic Car Show. It was billed as the biggest and best ever. Mike Spencer put the organisers' claim to the test.
They came in all shapes and sizes, long and thin, round and aggressive, British, foreign, young, old, and that was only the visitors. Attendances over the 2 days of the NEC National Classic Motor Show were up 20% on last year at 28,000. As the modern car becomes more reliable, more efficient and more like any other car on the road, it appears interest in classic cars is growing.
The pompous thing to say is because modern cars are so boring, people come back to cars like this. They might not have been reliable, they might not have been waterproof, but they were so much fun. And most of us here have got at least one toy in the garage that we bring out on summer weekends.
It's a Jaguar XK120 and I restored the car the last 6 years, and this summer I come over to England to do the National XK Day, and it was a winning car. I won the first prize, and that's the reason why I'm here now at the moment.
It's a 1924 Cadillac Sedan DeVille, 7-seat limo, V8, flathead, side valve. We've had the car approximately 6 months. The only thing we've had to do since I bought it was retrim it, because the gentleman down here before me had it for 20 years and he wouldn't drive it. It came from a place in Aylesbury. The nice things about these, in the old days, the car were a bit of a darling to start, so they had these little primer chambers here. What you have to do is just put a spot of petrol in each chamber all the way around. Then the driver will sit in the car and he'll say to you, right, and each and every one of these valves will open up, the petrol drops down, and usually the car will start. If it doesn't start then you've got big trouble.
This is a 1954 RME 1.5 litre saloon, which I've owned for about 2.5 years now. When I got it, the body had been restored, but the underside needed cleaning up, and I've basically stripped the car back to the bare chassis, painted all underneath. I've renewed all the suspension, the brakes, the steering gear, and also fitted a new engine.
We have got V8 pilots, and a friend that we know said, got a car in a garage, been in there for a few years, you might be interested. So Ginger went and had a look at it, and he was more than interested, and so we took it on. Everything was there, but some of it needed a lot of restoration work. So basically we've come apart, every single nut and bolt, everything's been apart and completely rebuilt, refurbed, pieces found and remade that needed it, and so complete sort of chassis up restoration.
Do you know the history of the car, where it was before?
Unfortunately no. We only know that it was been stored in a garage for about 10 years. It was taken as settlement of a bad debt, but we don't know when it was imported or unfortunately anything else about it. We met an Argentinian when we took it up to Osterley Park, and he confirmed for us that it was made in South America and that it was a 1936, and why it was right-hand drive, because from 1928 to 36 they drove on the right-hand side of the road.
The car is a Triumph 1020 Sports, which was manufactured in 1923. It was the first model that Triumph produced, and It come over to Belfast in 1923. It sat in a showroom for 1 year because the car was so expensive. In 1923, that car cost £430 new, and it sat in a showroom for 1 year until the original owner went in and bought it. And when he died 31 years ago, I got the car, I bought the car.
This is one of the cars we featured in the December issue of the magazine. This is an XK120 Jaguar, produced in 1948. Probably one of the most sensuous, probably one of the most beautiful cars Jaguar ever produced. They followed this up with the E-Type Jaguar, and they now brought out the new XK8 Jaguar, which has been a huge success in the modern car market. But I think this XK120 is a fantastic machine. It was a sports car beyond belief when it appeared at the Earls Court Motor Show in London. In the late 40s, and we featured it as one of the 5 fastest cars of the decades, and it really is a fantastic car to drive. Modern cars are very good. They're all the same these days. They become sort of like, I suppose, appliances. That's their problem. The fact that they're so good is almost their downfall. And people who want something a little bit more exciting are looking for older cars because they have a lot of character. I mean, some of that character is probably because they are a little bit, they require a little bit more maintenance, a little bit more care, and a little bit of looking after in comparison with modern cars, but they're very individualistic.
Some wonderful images there. Well, later on in the programme, we'll be driving some classic old Model A Fords as Mellon Motors joins an owners club in California. Well, now, remember last week we left Nicky Fox on the Yokohama Tyre track near Tokyo. Well, this week she's made her way into the city itself to discover that the Japanese generally don't wait until the police stop them in lay-bys before they change their tyres.
Tokyo, where individuals are expected to conform. But when they take to 4 wheels, it's a personal statement and a love affair with one car accessory in particular. A typical downtown Tokyo tyre depot, but in Japan, tyre shops are a bit different. The country's 60 million car owners are so style conscious that they'll spend thousands on high-performance tyres or oversized alloy rims for even the humblest of cars. But when it comes to sports models, the sky's the limit. The owner of this Nissan Skyline is about to drop a cool £4,500 on new rims and tyres. The Skyline is a sports model not available in Britain, and it's the favourite of many Japanese boy racers whose bolt-on accessories turn street Skylines into nearly full-blown race machines.
16これはタイヤ16インチなんですけれども、今日は17インチのタイヤとホイールに買いに来ました。
These tires and wheels are 16 inch, and he said he came in today to put on 17 inch tires and wheels.
That sounds like rather a luxury. Why?
サーキットを走るんで
He takes his car on the circuit, and 17 inch tires give a lot more performance than 16.
Now, this is a very special car, and you've obviously fitted a lot of racing features to it. Where do the wheels and tyres rate in importance?
中のものとかも結構大切ですけど
Of course, all the components are important, but the tire is a consumable aspect. So it's important to really take care on what tire you choose because it wears the fastest.
The orderly traffic hides a host of high-performance wannabes because even for humble Japanese family cars, sales of sporty, low-profile tyres outstrip those in Britain. For proprietor Seiichi Nagashima, this is a sign of Japanese individuality. Given the high price of accessories like these, why do you think specialist wheels and tyres are so popular?
Well, there is a fashion statement to be made, but it also it's a personal statement more than fashion. Each person has their car, and it gives them their own identity.
And would it tend mainly to be sports cars, or do people dress up quite ordinary cars with special accessories like these?
So the sports car in particular, of course, people are interested in it. But on the fashion end, you'll see just a normal passenger car.
So just about anything goes?
Yes.
And don't think the fashion stops at this. The word from California is that 19-inch rims are becoming all the rage.
What day is it? Oh yes, time to change my tyres and buy some shares in the Japanese tyre retail industry. We've got to stop now to check for tread depth and sidewall damage. We'll see you very soon. Hi, welcome back. Some weeks ago we looked at the history of automotive glass production and how we don't have to drive around looking through flat plate glass. But how is modern car glass manufactured and what developments can we look forward to?
Your car windows started like this: sand, limestone and dolomite to stabilise the chemical reaction, soda ash to lower the melting temperature, and broken glass or cullet to help the melting. A continuous ribbon of molten glass is floated on liquid tin before being cut into flat pieces. A computer-controlled tungsten carbide wheel scores the required shape of your car window, and a flame creates thermal stress to crack it along the score. The edges are then ground and washed. This particular glass is set to be toughened by being floated on hot gas.
It's toughened by heating ordinary window glass to around 630 degrees centigrade and chilling very rapidly, which puts a surface compressive stress into the glass, making it very strong to massive impact. That's obviously a benefit. The stress is built into the glass by that process. If it is released by the layer being penetrated by a sharp object, it causes the glass to shatter into tiny fragments, causing not too much injury. Laminated glass, on the other hand, is ordinary window glass, but it is given its safety by the incorporation of an interlayer these days of PVB or polyvinyl butyral, which is a very stretchy material, so that if you do have the misfortune to hit it with your head, acts as a safety net and stops you from being ejected from the car. Less important now, of course, because seatbelt legislation and airbags do tend to stop people hitting the windscreens anyway.
Glass to make laminated windscreens is much thinner than your other car glass. Alternate glasses are cut as inners and outers, one slightly bigger than the other to compensate for the difference in curvature when stuck together with the plastic sandwich. The glasses are curved as a pair using a sag bending process, where at 600 degrees Celsius they bend under their own weight into a mould. The thin plastic interlayer is added in between the two pieces of glass, and the package is squeezed together before being baked in a high-pressure furnace or autoclave for 1.5 hours. Each panel is then checked for quality under special lighting conditions. But maybe you don't really care how your car glass is made. You just want to know what it can do for you.
We've got this set up here, but we've actually used it as a demonstration to go out to car manufacturers and show the stylists and engineers of the future. What we've actually got is a windscreen. First of all, it's got the heated windscreen in it. Secondly, at the top of the glass you'll see that there is a raindrop sensor. This means that during rainy conditions the windscreen wipers will automatically activate, and we can set that to a number of levels for intermittent wipe or continuous, etc. Also in the windscreen, looking from the inside of the car, you can see a head-up display. Obviously this is something very much for the future, but you could see a number of your instrument controls projected onto the windscreen as you're actually driving. So very simply the demonstration here shows the speed the car is going. That system has also been used extensively in a European research project to actually drive a car in night conditions or in very foggy conditions, and we've actually done tests and trials of actually driving a Jaguar car in complete darkness for the police.
What, you mean with no headlights on or anything?
With no headlights on at all, just complete darkness.
How do you see then? Is it an infrared camera?
It's an infrared system that displays an image then onto the head-up display.
Wow.
in the car. It's a very, very impressive system. Obviously, again, it's not going to be for the general public in the foreseeable future, but it could be used in the military or in the police type activities. Moving around the car, we've got then laminated side glazing. Here we also show that you can put heated wire elements to demist or defrost the side glasses. Also on the same side of the car we've got the double glazing. This again is used in many of the top of range vehicles. That gives extra noise and heat performance. Around the back of the car there's various examples of antenna systems. These are printed circuits onto the glass for either telephone or even TV antenna systems.
But car glass need not just be practical, it can be beautiful as well. XXX are consultants to the young car designers at London's Royal College of Art.
Well, yes, we've been involved with the Royal College of Art now for the last 9 years. Our main purpose is to help with the innovative designs of glass styling and help students actually understand what can be done or can't be done with glass, and also to build long-term relationships with the potential stylists of the future.
This year's winner of the Design Awards competition was Matthew Bevan and a two-seater sports leisure vehicle. His astonishing college-made 3D animation of his vehicle rivals the quality of some top manufacturers.
You just never stop learning, do you? We're going to learn some more words of wisdom from Stirling Moss and a look at the new Fiat Marea after this short break. Hi and welcome back. We escape the UK winter gloom now and enjoy the Californian sun and some gloriously maintained Model A Fords.
Yes, it's a pet pig in a California park, and it's sniffed out a meeting of Model A Fords. You've got to be quick to catch the San Fernando Valley Club. They think nothing of running the 400 miles to Las Vegas just for lunch. That is after they've turned cars like this into cars like this. The Model A fire engine was restored by their leader, Whispering Hank Sawney. Why collect Model A's?
They're the poor man's antique. Very affordable to the average citizen.
This fire engine doesn't look affordable.
No, this is quite expensive. Took 29 months out of my life. Belongs to a very beautiful family that can afford it, let's put it that way. It's the oldest known Model A fire engine in the country. Was built in May of 1928. Everything on this car or truck is functional. We can put out fires.
There's one thing that Hank admires most about the design of the Ford Model A.
The mechanical aspect is that they were all identical. Ford was very sharp in doing that. You can take the various body styles, put them on the same chassis. Smart. And we're lucky. We've got 160 Model A Fords in our San Fernando Valley Club.
Which might seem a lot, but Ford made 4.25 million worldwide in just 4 years, and 250,000 survive in the States alone. Now, what I like best about this motorised picnic club are its members. Some are nearly as old as the cars, and they're fun.
Well,
Bought my first one when I think I was 13, and had that for a few years until all of a sudden there was a V8 around and I had to have a V8. So Model A's left me for about 50 years, and then I retired and I got to thinking about it in a nostalgic way. I bought a Model A just to see if I remembered what it was like, and it's even worse than I remembered.
Well, actually, it's I was born into it, really, and this car belonged to my great uncle. In fact, he bought it back in the early '30s, and he passed it on to his sister and my mom, and Dad married Mom in '47, I believe. It became part of the family then, and it's always been parked in the garage.
When I came by it, it wasn't beautiful. The top was completely gone. There was grass growing on the seats in the back seat, and I paid the tremendous sum of $50 for it. And
when was that?
That was in 1940.
Good morning.
Hi. Well, I can see this one's a bit different because it's a pickup. Were there a lot of Model A pickups?
Well, I'll tell you, there was a lot of Model A pickups. This is what's known as a roadster pickup. In other words, it does not have the steel top, etc. Top comes down, convertible. Okay, and this happens to be a 1931, and they are very, very rare.
As are some spare parts. Although the design is simple by modern standards, every now and again a Model A can get the better of even the most patient owner.
Yeah, well, there's a point in there where you get so fed up with it, you want to scrap the whole project. I think you have to hide all the hammers in the shop because you're going to go around and beat the hell out of it because I had enough, nothing's going right, simple things.
So is this the Model A that you picked up when you decided to go back to them?
Yeah. I made a mistake. I was a little impulsive, and I bought the first one that I thought looked good, and then I joined the club and found that Model A's normally aren't yellow, but I have a yellow Model A, and I'm too lazy to change it.
Well, I like yellow. I think it's gorgeous.
I do too, except on Model A's.
Hank Sawney's enthusiasm for the Model A runs beyond the professional restoration of rare vehicles like the fire engine. Hank's been in love with his own Model A saloon for a long time, and he's got no worries over its reliability and running costs.
They're a nice vehicle. I've driven mine personally 93,000 miles since I've restored it. And I've probably spent around $400 for repairs.
And that's the beauty of owning a Model A, which is just as well because these cars need staying power if they're going to keep up with their sprightly owners. There goes the San Fernando Valley Club, off to cover a few more miles in search of that perfect picnic spot.
One of young Henry Ford's finest. Now it's time to join Mike Rutherford and Stirling Moss again in conversation. This week, the subject is the one that seems to have hit headlines in recent months. That's road rage.
It seems to me that there's this huge incompatibility between certain types of drivers. I mean, when people talk about this nonsense of road rage, as far as I'm concerned, road rage has been around since the year dot and always will be there.
Yeah, we have a name for it now.
What is it now?
Road rage.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah,
quite.
Quite. But it seems to me that maybe incompatibility between drivers is a better way to describe it. Let me quote you an example. I was recently travelling to an airport. I was late for my checking in. If I didn't get there, I would have missed the plane. I wouldn't have been able to fly out of Britain that day. I'm driving through somebody's village. I'm probably driving too quickly because I'm in a rush. My car is probably too fast. I'm probably far too excited for my own good. I'm probably giving myself an ulcer. Somebody pulling out of me happened to be a little old bloke in a Proton who was probably driving too slow. Probably had too much time on his hands as opposed to me with too little. He's popping down the shop to get a packet of tobacco or his newspaper or whatever, and it was the incompatibility of the two drivers that caused the friction between us both. And I think we should perhaps, if we're tearing around, younger drivers should say to ourselves, hang on a minute, it's an old bloke in the car or an old lady in the car. Maybe we should give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe we should be a bit more gentle with them, a bit kinder to them, because we do give them a hard time. I'm not talking about older drivers like yourself. I'm talking about the people in their 70s who are clearly out of touch with the real world, and often their cars are out of touch as well.
But is that a good thing?
That their cars?
You see, I mean, people can cause accidents by dithering just as much as by going
Absolutely.
too quickly, and I think that's quite an important point.
There are some figures from the AA, I gather, that suggest that the decrease that we've seen over the last 5-10 years in road casualties, we're now down to about, we only kill around 3,500 people a year. That's still 3,500 too many, but the figure used to be much higher. But there is a theory that that figure will bottom out and that the fatality rate on our roads will increase, not because of young drivers, but because of older drivers, because of the very reasons that we're talking about. That seems to me a worrying prospect.
Yes, but I would have thought the advent, and we are getting more and more automatics, I would have thought would help, frankly, because I think there's people, you know, when they come along, they put the handbrake, they've got to put the handbrake off, they've got to put the clutch out, engage the gear and so on. With an automatic it's a lot easier. They haven't got to take so much time. And I would have thought an older person with an automatic would be a safer driver because of this, less deliberation, and therefore better on the road.
Do you think there's a danger with all these safety devices on cars, everything from ABS to twin airbags to traction control to pre-tensioners on seat belts? There's a danger that people are climbing into their cars with a sort of false sense of security. They think they're a lot safer than they actually are.
I think probably they are fairly safe, or considerably safer than they were. I think that a lot of thought, I think, has to be given to young children and the use of airbags, because I was reading a rather disturbing article the other day that the airbags can kill young children because they're put in the wrong way round and all that sort of thing. You know, not having them facing you, which is bad, and so on. They should, of course, always be in the back. But I think the safer we can make cars, certainly the better. I think motor racing, I think, is a good example of how much safer the cars are. I mean, if we had the safety of the cars that are here today now, I mean, people like Jimmy Clark would be alive. I mean, there'd be so many people that would never have died.
Well, finally on Four Wheels Good, let's look at 3 cars you might be interested in buying, including the new Fiat Marea. First, a vehicle from Toyota aimed at the family man.
The Picnic was designed to be spacious, practical and easy to drive. This 6-seater is supposed to fill the niche between estate cars and MPVs, or multi-purpose vehicles, being more versatile than an estate car and more agile and less expensive than the MPV. At a starting price of $16,500, this family fun vehicle is being targeted at the larger than average families, with an attractively styled, spacious interior that gives plenty of room with seats that fold, slide, recline and even completely disappear. And there's easy reach between all 3 rows of seats. One of the disadvantages we found inside was the inability to adjust the height position of the steering wheel and the driver's seat, and the small rear screen hampers the all-round visibility. Under the bonnet, there's the revised version of the 2-litre engine from the Toyota RAV4 off-roader, which aids performance and gives the Picnic an average of 31 miles per gallon. It does handle well, but the family fun vehicle lacks the agility of some estate cars, but there is a pleasing lack of body roll, which gives a firm ride, but not uncomfortable. The Toyota Picnic does give the driver more of that car-like feel, which isn't apparent in most MPVs, but at the price that's been set, it will struggle to compete with other versatile, full-size people carriers like the Volkswagen Charan or the new Espace. The Suzuki X90 is definitely like no other off-roader you've ever seen. Based on the mechanics of the Suzuki Vitara, the X90 is a strict 2-seater with a separate boot and lift-off glass roof panels. Priced at £10,375 for the 2-wheel drive version and £11,375 if you want the 4-wheel option. It's cheap, and even the dearer model undercuts its leading rival, the Toyota RAV4, by £2,000. Within the price of the X90, equipment is generous. Twin airbags, immobilizers, power steering, electric windows and central locking are all fitted as standard. The cabin, unfortunately, is not so inspiring. It's all very subjective, but we think the materials used are pretty dull, and the overall impression is one of a cramped driving area with headroom tight and the door panel stealing elbow room. Both the 2-wheel drive and the 4-wheel drive are powered by the same 1.6-litre, 16-valve, 95 brake horsepower engine from the Vitara. It does deliver a maximum speed of 93 miles an hour, but anywhere near this will give fairly unacceptable engine noise into the cabin. The ride is bouncy, the handling is better when on off-road use rather than giving a good road drive. And as a result, the X90's off-road performance is competent, with an ability to tackle steep inclines. Fiat's replacement for the Tempra has now arrived in the form of the Fiat Marea. The Marea comes in two guises, a four-door saloon and an estate called the Marea Weekend, which is basically the replacement for the Tempra station wagon. Both are basically the Fiat Bravo and Brava with different rear ends. Apart from slight change to the lights, the front half of the car is identical to that of the Bravo, with the Weekend estate boasting larger rear doors as well as its squared-off rump with gigantic rear lights similar to the Renault Laguna estate riding up the rear pillars. The Marea is due on sale in the new year and will be available with a full range of engines, including a 1.6 litre and 1.8 litre petrol and a choice of 3 diesel, with a 2 litre 5-cylinder dealing with the Marea's weight better than the rest. The engine isn't quiet, but it does sound sporty, as you would expect from an Italian car. The interior offers plenty of storage compartments with a boot to match, as well as a split loading platform on the station wagon that makes it easier to move luggage in and out. The driving position is comfortable and the instruments are adequate, with some nice extra touches, including safety systems for the power windows that prevent them being accidentally closed by children, and intelligent locking, which closes the windows and sunroof if they're accidentally left open. But the stereo is still pretty poor quality, and overall you may as well be in the Brava. The 2.4 litre turbo diesel Marea is expected to cover over 520 miles on a full tank at a constant 75 miles an hour without refueling, with a top speed ranging from 115 to 129 miles an hour in petrol versions depending on engine size, and 102 to 121 miles an hour on turbo diesel versions.
Well, one piece of news in the recent budget has been applauded by environmentalists. The tax on LPG gas fuel has been reduced. Gas is generally accepted as a much more environmentally friendly fuel than petrol or diesel. But is it really the fuel of the future? Will we ever get a practical electric car? Well, next week we'll be looking at how serious car manufacturers are at producing clean emission vehicles. And we'll also be reporting from Volkswagen's Environmental Forum at the Wolfsburg HQ in Germany. So until then, safe driving. We'll see you next time.